Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, looking at the clock here, I guess it's still morning. I hope everyone's doing well on this day. Today's subject matter is going to, I guess I'll just start off by saying, does your opinion matter? And, if you said that to someone outright and said, does your opinion matter? A person might take offense to that, And I say, of course my opinion matters. Everyone's opinion matters. But I have an outlook on it that's a little bit different. And I'm going to try to lay it out in the best and most respectful way that I can. First off, if you want to have an opinion on a subject, you better damn well be educated on the subject, at least to the degree that you can formulate an opinion that's based in reason. And I think all of us have had debates with people who, even though they know nothing about the subject, they will argue with every fallacy in the book to try to prove their point. And this is where I generally step away. This is where I've realized in my life that certain arguments just are not worthy of my time. So, for example, if I get into a discussion about a subject that the person obviously doesn't know anything about, but they're trying to make up things, or you can tell that they're going off to research something so they can come back with a better answer, it's best to just walk away. And the reason why we get into a debate or a discussion in the first place is so people can both learn from the subject. And that's the idea. So when you're presenting an idea and someone else calls it out, sometimes I've said something that maybe was worded incorrectly or that was based on evidence that I was unsure of, and somebody said, hey, this is maybe not true. Rather than going back and saying, no, you're wrong, you're an asshole. Yeah, I try to, put effort into understand it better because it helps. I guess to give you a story, to put it as a story. Let's say that when you were growing up, you decided that you wanted to educate yourself and learn about a lot of different subjects. And let's say some of your friends decided to just go out and party, get into trouble, went to jail for a while, got some DUIs and just had a good time, traveled around and never really did anything to actually learn. And then you both come back together, say in your 20s or 30s, and you start discussing things. And the other person's trying to, they're trying to pretend like they know more than they know, even though they haven't put in the legwork to actually do it. It would be like if I was working as a carpenter for 10, 20 years, and then somebody came in and tried to, a newbie on his first week, and he's trying to tell me a better way to swing a hammer. Perhaps he may have something there, but in general, there's a little bit of expertise involved in understanding how many of these things work. And in the world at large, it's the same way. Understanding which things will work requires more than just understanding that subject. It requires an understanding of the worldly subjects and all the different philosophies and sciences and religions, and putting all these things together to say, what is it that humans desire? Now, for example, I could give you a somewhat of a good example that just popped into my head. In today's world, we're much more science-oriented than we once were, in the sense that a lot of folks will assume, they say, well, that we're past religion. I've heard people say, well, in modern society, I can't believe that people still believe in dogma. And I can't believe that people still believe in a God or Jesus or whatever it may be. They're assuming that since the science is there, even though it's not proving or disproving anything, but rather since we have new understandings of things that we once deemed to be mysterious, that people are instantly going to take that evidence and cast away everything that they once believed. Folks will say that they're hanging on to this, this idea that their parents taught them and their parents taught them, that it's dogma, that's through desperation, whatever it may be. As you dig into religion and start to go a little deeper, you realize that there's more to it than that. That people aren't just merely believing because they're ignorant, nor are people believing because their parents told them to. People are believing things because as humans, we're confused and we don't know why we're here, and we're doing our best to make sense of it. By me merely saying that we as humans are confused and we don't know where we're going or why we're here, that instantly puts, a person could use that as saying, ha, you don't understand what's going on. To me, having having the balls to admit that you don't know what's going on is a little bit, I think that's to be respected, because it allows us to step back from what we think we know. Just like many religious zealots will tell you that, all you need is the Bible, and many scientists would tell you all you need is science. We know there's more to it, because by understanding both sides, you realize people believe things not just because they don't understand them. People believe things because it comforts them. So, using this, you understand a little bit more about psychology and how the brain works, and then you can start to say that it doesn't matter how much evidence you present somebody on a particular case, whether it be religious, political, they are going to derive their opinions from the things that they understand and know. And there will be many other things that we don't understand and know. Sometimes I just don't have enough of information on a subject, so I prefer not to talk about it. Like, I've had people suggest, hey, you should make a video about this subject, and say, I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to go out and just research something to pretend like I know it. I talk about things that I feel in my heart and that I think in my mind, but I definitely don't subscribe or prescribe any truth and absolution to it. Ultimately, I'm living from my one mind, and I think people forget that they are living from their one mind. It doesn't matter if you have a group that believes what you believe. They're going to have various beliefs that you don't believe, and you're going to have beliefs that they don't believe. You can't even get Christians to get along about, what the Bible means. You can't get Muslims to get along with what Islam means. You can't get the conservatives to get along with the other conservatives, nor the Democrats with the other Democrats, or, liberals. If you take it into the political arena, people are so desperate to associate with a group because they want to attach to something they can relate to. So when their group is saying, yeah, go get them, they can join in on that. So instantly, if I say something like, oh, I can't stand Donald Trump, I have been labeled, oh, you're a liberal, you're a libtard, just by merely making that comment. And meanwhile, somebody might say, oh, Bernie Sanders is a complete, wussy, and he'd never do anything. And a person would say, oh, you're just another stuck-up capitalist. And people need to stop labeling each other, I guess is my point. It's ludicrous. I know that politics and religion always come into it for my examples. It's because they're two of the biggest argumentative issues that we have. I mean, if you want to get into something a little more subjective, you could start talking about eating meat, or, the vegans. The way that meat eaters don't go around, saying, oh, yeah, I'm a meat eater, they just eat meat. Whereas vegans often pretty much live on an image of what they are, and they have to tell everyone about it. Hey man, I'm a vegan. Oh, I don't eat that. I don't hurt animals, and that's fine. That's their choice, but they're using that as a way to stick their nose up and say, look, I'm better than you, and you should be this way too. Of course, not all vegans are that way, and by me saying that, there's probably a vegan out there who will get offended. Oh, we're not like that. But you got to admit, plenty of them are. And just like the ignorant and arrogant conservatives and the ignorant and arrogant liberals, they're both on ends of the spectrum that are just ludicrous. I see the conservatives as a bunch of assholes and the liberals as a bunch of pussies. How else do you put it? A true thinker, or a person who really gets their mind into it, realizes you can't attribute yourself to one group or another, and then we're forced into this two-party system. And it creates a lot of opinions and divisions. Which brings me back to, what is your opinion really worth? When you get into a discussion with somebody, do you have to constantly prove yourself? Do you have to constantly say, no, this is true, and resort to evidences? And let's just say for a minute that you're completely right. Let's say you believe something and you know it very strongly and you've researched it more than anybody else, and you're the world expert. It does no good if you can't explain it to people in a way they can understand. I had a long discussion with an old guy the other day. I think he's in his 70s. And we sat down and had a cup of coffee, and he was telling me how much he disliked philosophy, how he was all about ethics. And he created this equation, this math equation, to prove ethics and human values and why that they're valid. And instantly it came into my mind, all this thinking he'd been doing. He'd been working on this book for for a long time, and he's got all these ideas, and for years he's been putting these things together. And I said, what good does it do to put a math equation out if people don't understand it? And he's like, well, I don't care if people understand it or not. And I'm like, well, then why are you publishing a book? And he kind of stopped for a minute. These are the very obvious things sometimes we as individuals don't think about. We're so wrapped up in what we think is right that, basically, I guess the answer was, well, some people will understand it. I said, yes, those are the people who already understand it. That's the whole point. Is if you want to have a discussion and be right about something, if you want to prove something, it doesn't matter how right you are if you can't put it in a way that people understand. And even if you do put it in a way that people understand, it has to have value. I find myself being very cautious in my videos to not start breaking out all these big words about, like when I talk about terpenes or something and I'm talking about, the chemistry of plants. I realize a lot of people are like, they don't even know what terpenes are. So I try to say essential oils or keep it on a level that, not because people are stupid, because a lot of people are far more intelligent than I am, but just don't know about terpenes. And that's the point, is that we take it back to the science thing. Just like science has been trying to, people have been using science to try to disprove religion. I don't know. It's hard to explain. People use the extreme belief in one thing to just cast away all doubts about it and just eliminate it. And so they can say, this is true, I'm going to set it aside on my shelf, and it's part of my belief system now. And that's just ludicrous. I mean, as humans, we should be constantly changing as the information comes in. I mean, if you think of yourself not as a computer, but as a conscious computer, computers change programs. They have updates, and without that, they get viruses, they get corrupted, the systems fall apart over time when they remain stagnant. And just like when a certain operating system sits long enough, people can find weaknesses in it and create viruses and whatnot for it. The same thing, if you sit in one state of mind long enough, then people will start finding chinks in your armor. And the idea is to let that battle ensue within your own mind. Battle over what you know. Think about what you believe. The trick is to not believe something too long to where it becomes part of you, rock solid, to where your brain is wired to prove it no matter what. And you'll use every fallacy in the book. I want to be able to say that I'm 40 last year, and by the time I turn 50 in 10 years, I want to be able to say that I've completely changed again, that I've been able to, but at the same time, and here's the most important thing to me, to find which values remain consistent throughout your life, and ask yourself if they're valid. For me, it would be things like whether I'm conservative or Democrat or religious or atheist. There's a certain set of values I always carry with me, which are, I don't steal from people, I don't lie, I never cheated a game. I mean, honestly, I grew up with a lot of cheaters around me, and people who would steal, and perhaps that observation set the tone for me. I will not cheat at a game. I don't care if the game is rigged itself. I don't care if it's only going to, take from a corporation or even a government. I just don't cheat. Because cheating is a value that I do not respect. It's a self-gain at the cost of your own well-being internally. And I think it cuts into us deep. Just like lying, stealing, cheating, and hurting other people. And this is why the Christians often think that they own the Ten Commandments as if they're something that God had to put on a rock in order for people to understand. And that's just bullshit. These are obvious values that go back through all cultures. We all know what happens when you covet each other's goods. We all know what happens when you lie, cheat, and steal. So every culture has tried to prescribe their little additions to these basic values that we all share, whether it be religious, political, or otherwise. And, often people feel held back. They're like, how can we make all these laws in this country that hold us back from doing what we want? I think, well, without laws, it would allow people to take more than their share. But with laws, it allows them to abuse it. There's no simple answer to the problems that we face. Nor is there any simple answer to our belief systems or thinking. So, in a nutshell, if you want people to respect your opinions, don't put them forward as a pointing finger. Never do that, because people just instantly become defensive. The best thing we can do is to plant a seed. I would urge people to stop talking about waking people up, because I think that that is just the most ludicrous bullshit statement I've ever heard. What the fuck do you want to wake people up to? I'm sorry for the language, but you know, everyone, if you ask people that who say people need to wake up, nobody has an opinion on what waking up is, because everyone has their own idea of what waking up is. Some people would say, well, waking up means seeing that the government is corrupt. Other people would say, well, waking up means seeing that the Illuminati runs the whole world. Other people say that waking up means realizing that we're genetic, UFOs had come here and they genetically created humans. And other people would say waking up is simply coming to terms with who you are, finding yourself. And maybe all these are true, and maybe they're all bullshit. It doesn't matter. The point is that there's no consistency of waking up. And if you look at it like, if you wake somebody up too quickly, they might get up on the wrong side of bed. Let's just put it that way. We've got to ease into these things and plant the seed of truth as far as you know it. And if it grows and it flourishes, then you know that you have something. And if not, then maybe it's time to let it go. So, hope you're all having a good day. And